Hi, everyone. What I got in mind for today is to talk about Adam Smith, uh, doing Adam Smith hand in hand with Karl Marx. This is the sort of battle royale of the what 20th, 21st century capitalism, communism, or at least it's often presented like that. Adam Smith being maybe more the grandfather of capitalism, if not the father. Marx, uh, the father of communism. I mean, this is his idea. So we want to explore this. There's a couple of things that I should say about this from the outset. There's like two ways of understanding the nature of homo oikonomos, that is to say, economic man. Instead of homo sapien, knowing man, or animal rationalis, the rational animal, or this linguistic man, or whatever other way that we might understand ourselves. What we're doing now is looking at ourselves economically, right? And there's two ways to understand this sort of economic engagement. Adam Smith understands it in the sense of an individual engaging an economic system for I don't know, some sort of self-expression, getting what they want, but what one wants might be better or worse or whatever. So it's not just merely getting what one wants, but that's sort of it. And maybe it's merely getting what one wants. So there's a sense that I can be myself in some way, or that myself is not in any way compromised by my engagement in the economy. That's problematic, and we'll see that Smith doesn't hold that idea completely. But there's some sense that I'm not determined by my economic engagement, so there is at least the distinction that I'm not determined, because for Marx I am determined by my economic engagement. Who I am, how I am, what I can do, the nature of my freedom, the nature of my life, everything depends on my economic engagement. I am what I am because of the economy. Okay? That's not the case for Smith. Even if there's something like that, there's some separation from Marx. I can't be a thing. I can't even think of what myself is outside of my economic conditions. I can't even imagine it. Well, maybe I can. I don't know. But it would just be an imaginary thing, and it would still be bound to the concepts of private property. So I couldn't even think myself free from those concepts. But we'll talk about that when we get to Marx. So there's a sense of me independent from the economy, and a sense of me determined by the economy. Okay. So to Adam Smith then. Let's talk about Adam Smith. So the text we are looking at is called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, and it was published in 1776. I think it was the only thing important that happened that year. Right? For those of you who are from America or know anything about American history, 1776 is the year that America declared its independence, right? So it's sort of like a really strange coincidence, proof of the existence of God there, or something like that, that the country that would become the sort of hallmark of capitalism, and the text that is like the grounding text of capitalism, happened at the same year. But that's of course just a coincidence. So what is this text that we're going to look at? So what is it about this text that I want to explore? What Adam Smith brings to bear in this text. It's like two texts, a 2-volume set, and the whole thing. So we're reading a small portion of it for sure. A lot of equations and numbers. It's a scientific, or supposed to be a scientific thing, so it's grounded in all sorts of calculations and so forth. But what Smith brings to the table here is a new understanding of the nature of wealth, and as well as some other things that we want to explore. But prior to him, the economic system was called mercantilism, and it was dependent on like precious metals. So a country, the wealth of nations here we're talking about, a country was wealthy insofar as it had lots of gold or silver, right? Spain being like a great example. Supposedly, they went to the New World and just like got the gold, and they had so much gold. But the problem was they had so much gold that it decreased the value of gold, and it was problematic. So there's always a problem with this having of this precious metal thing. So mercantilism was the means of understanding wealth, and then Adam Smith brings to bear the idea that wealth is connected to production. So wealth and production. Now, no matter how much you get, if you even have it all, there's only a finite amount of wealth of gold on the earth, right? If you somehow tie your wealth to production, then your wealth is not bound to a finite set of bits of metal, but is somewhat unbounded. Now, this is the thinking, of course, they did not have any sort of economic, environmental concerns that were beyond, their noses. So, the idea that one could just produce endlessly was something for them. The world is huge. We'll never run out. They wouldn't even have thought that because it was just the assumption. So, but nevertheless, if we move beyond having just like the having of these metals, if we tie wealth to production, then one's wealth is as limitless as one's productive capabilities, right? So if you can produce, you can be wealthy. So this is the thinking that Adam Smith brings in his work. What is the wealth of nations now? It's funny. The 1776 connection and the capitalism connection makes this lecture sometimes a matter of patriotic commitment, right? So Americans get touchy if one is critical of Adam Smith or something like that, and especially if one is critical of Adam Smith and at the same time then somehow championing an idea of Marx. I mean, this is just like the worst thing that someone could do in America. At least something, right? But Smith is not even promoting anything. He's not saying, hey, look at my ideas. Let's do this. It's the best. His work is descriptive. It's it's a scientific thing. The productive world is his data set. So he's just going out and looking at his data set and saying, look at what happens when I look at my data set. Is it a good thing? Well, we'll talk about that in another way. And he does talk about this, and he is critical of it. So we will understand Smith in a couple of senses. That first of all, this text is not a championing of something, but a describing of something new, and this new productive power. Also, we want to be on the lookout for the things that he says that are good about it, and the things that he says that are not so good about it. So there is something that I call, this is just my phrase for it. It can be found everywhere. We'll find it in the text we're reading. Smith's ambivalence. Ambivalence being not so much wishy-washy, because that's like a non-committal sort of thing, but judging in both ways, right? So seeing on one side both good things that would make me judge that this is a good thing to do, but seeing on the other side bad things that would make me judge that this is a bad thing to do. Oh, but it's a good thing to do. But it's a bad thing. But it's a good thing. So I'm compelled in both directions, and not just I don't really care either way. So Smith's ambivalence is that, wow, there's some great things that are happening here, and there are some really, really horrific things that are happening here. And in this sense, Smith and Marx are like that. Smith and Marx are like that as regards some of these things, because the productive power, Smith and Marx both go, oh my God, this is like the greatest thing in the world. The dehumanizing element of that productive power, both Smith and Marx go, what a horror show. but there's a few other things that still that really separate Smith and Marx, and I want to understand these. Some of them come by way of Smith's assumptions. So we're going to want to be on the lookout for these. So some of the differences between Smith and Marx come about by way of Smith's assumptions. Now, one of the assumptions, it seems to me, is critical to his whole theory, and it also seems to me that his assumption is wrong. And we will talk about that when we get there. But let me say now, it is that the increase in productive power for Smith is going to increase the wealth of the workers. So those who participate in the increase in the productive power will also participate in the wealth that is increased. And he's wrong about that. Okay? But we'll get there. I'm happy to hear how I'm wrong about him. But it seems to me like it's just a matter of fact that he got this wrong. But we'll get to that when we get there. So let's take a look at let's take a look at book 1 of The Wealth of Nations. And I want to take a look at the title first for a second here, of the causes of improvement. So we're going to want to understand what is improvement in the productive powers of labor and the order according to which its produce is naturally distributed among the different ranks of people. So that's a mouthful of a title, right? You have to have a big title to sound important, I suppose. Improvement. Now, a word about improvement. One understands this as making better, but the origin of the word is to make profitable, right? So the Latin word, the root word is to make profitable. So we've understood and we've sort of brought together into one idea, improving and making profitable. Maybe this is the same, maybe it's not, but it's something to keep in mind. The productive powers of labor. Oh, one other thing about improvement. Back in the day, the old name for a construction company was an improvement company. So like you would buy a couple of acres of unimproved land, which meant like woods and rocks and nothing profitable. You'd call the improvement company, they'd improve it and put it away. Then now it's something that's useful, that is to say something that you can make money from, right? It's profitable land now. So an improvement company and a construction company, that's the same sort of thing. So another way to keep in mind, to make it useful to me, improvement, to make it valuable to me, profit. Are these all the same? Getting better, is that all the same? So that's a thing to keep in mind. Labor, the power of labor. Here, who is labor? You know, who can labor? Anyone. So this is sort of a placeholder that can hold any. I mean, if you have, I guess you need to have some sort of movements in your body to be able to participate in some of the machinery somehow. But if you have that, well, you know, we got a job for you. You know, so anyone can participate from there to the most advanced skilled technicians or whatever. Anyone can do this stuff. Okay. Oh, and one final thing here, this natural distribution. It's interesting. I mean, it's 1776, different ranks of people, right? But this naturally distributed power, this power of natural distribution is what Adam Smith refers to elsewhere as the invisible hand. And it's sort of like the proto idea or concept of supply and demand. Right, the invisible hand will sort of spread all of the produce that is made around to wherever it's needed. Okay, moving on now. So this is just to highlight this sort of unity. Improvement equals increased production equals increased wealth equals general opulence. So this is the sort of rationale that Smith has here. The general opulence. We're going to talk about that. But what this means is that no one will go wanting, right? We are going to be able to produce in such a way that no one will go wanting. And that since that production also means a increase in wealth for everyone, everyone will be able to participate in this general opulence that has been made, right? The marketplace is loaded with stuff because we can make a gazillion iPhones and every other kind of phone and all that stuff. You can go get one. And since your work has enriched you, and if it hasn't, well, just produce more, then you'll have more. And then you can go get all your iPhones because they're all up there for us, right? Woohoo! This is what he's thinking. So let's see if we can trace this out.